I welcome this conversation with Ezra Vancil on the One in the Many. Ezra, it's great to see you back, and I'm looking forward to a fun conversation again.
Me too, Arshak. Thank you for having me on again. I just really enjoyed it, the last episode we did together, and it. I kept thinking about it weeks afterwards, and so it's a good conversation if it brings about so many thoughts. So it's really an honor to be back on with you.
Me too. I feel the same way. I'm very honored by your presence, and I wanted to touch a little bit on your book, this collection of poems and a poetry journal, you call it, Mornings and Midnights,
Mm-hmm.
and writings of Ezra Vancil. And so last time we recorded a conversation with you, we talked about your struggles. We talked about your history of um, struggling with um, the action necessary to get sober, and being under the influence of addiction, how disintegrative, how devastating it is to one's life. And then once you find your bearings, um, one thing you said that really stood out to me was that you said you started waking up earlier and your days started earlier once things changed. Um, so I found that remarkable because not that late night people are not productive or cannot sustain sobriety. It's just that the day indicates a beginning of something. You know, the sun rises and you start a new day. And and in the past, in the ancient past, day and night was very, very important to us. You know, the time before electricity, that's when you do things because we're perceptual beings. We need the light to help us figure out the world. In the dark, we're literally in darkness. We don't have the capacity, we don't have the physiological capacity to function in the dark. We have to rest in the dark. But in the advanced modern society, it doesn't really matter. I mean, you can be staying all night awake and write songs and create and solve problems and generate value, um, being supported by the electrical energy that gives you the light necessary for you to progress. But here, I think what you're touching on, mornings and midnights, is the more fundamental meaning of light and night, in a spiritual, psychological significance for man, that we need to be guided by the light.
Mm-hmm.
And most traditions have that same um, understanding that we ascribe light to a divine power that guides us forward, and we ascribe darkness to powers that try to make us deviant from that light. So it's a very interesting contrast, and I just wanted to put my preliminary understanding of how I understand where you're coming from with the midnight and mornings. But of course, you're the author, you're the man with the experience, and this is how you saw it. So tell me, how do you see it?
Well, you touched on some very good things there, and it is, uh, in essence, a deeper look at what light and darkness is. I think fundamentally it's a look at midnight when the light is shown on it. So in the construction of this album, I actually started with just the Midnight album, which is a double album, but it's really two albums, where I was going to look at a really dark period in my life, which was when I was going through a divorce with my wife. But as I started to write that, the light in my life now kept pushing its way through and like, ooh, but what about this? But look what's come out of this. And so I ended up writing an album that does touch on that midnight and explores that and shows that, but I couldn't resist showing the light because that is the reality of my life now, is that in that in that concept, I was living in a dark period of my life, a very long period of my life where I lived in the dark and actually did. I called myself a night person and stayed up late into the hours. So I physically lived in darkness too. But this album, I wanted to show both sides. I wanted to show what can happen after the darkness, after midnight, when you walk in the light. And I have to say, I wanted to say right there too, is that so all my life, people would say, you should wake up earlier, or, you're sleeping through the day, or you're tired all the time. And I'd say, I'm just a night person. I do all my work. And nothing against people that do that. I don't judge them because I did it for so long. But in a sense, me working late into the nights and sleeping through the day, I was rejecting the world as the rest of the world as they are, and saying, no, I will live in this darkness, and while everything is going on in the world, I'll sleep. And so there's a deeper truth in that when I turned my life over into the light, into the mornings, I was also embracing life. I was embracing the world around me and said, yes, I will show up when the world is going on, and I won't sleep through it. I will stay up and I will get up and I will show up to life like everyone has to do. I'm not different. I don't just get to go sleep through the world that is happening.
This is very interesting. One analogy that popped into my head is, um, in I live in New York, so in the Northeast you have the four seasons, of course, and in the winters it could be harsh, and so a lot of people that drive four-wheel drives, they think that because of the greater capacity than a two-wheel drive car, they can do whatever they want in the snow or in the ice. And most often, what you notice on the highway or on the side of the highway in the ditches is mostly SUVs or pickup trucks with four-wheel drives. They're all on the side because they just drove more than the limits of physics allows. And I think the way I understand it is that there are four stages of development for men. It's the childhood, the adolescence, then you have the maturity, and then you have the um, adult maturity. So, uh, um, I mean, adulthood and then mature adulthood. Um, so, in that second stage, in the adolescence, we are often rebellious, and it's not because we disagree with the world, but because we understand that we have inherited something that compels us to be in some kind of a form, but we are also compelled to make our own form, regardless of tradition we inherit through our ancestors, and particularly our family, our parents. And so, what is interesting, the way you put it, is that you are defying the accepted norm, right? You would
Mm.
stay in the night to be in defiance of, you guys do whatever you want, I'll do it my way. And, you know, I remember my time in college, I would have like two all-nighters in a row, and then my knees would be buckling from no strength left in me. And then I would be deficient for the next 48 hours. I had to recover from that, very intense studies, or time without sleep and effort put in. So there is limitation. You cannot defy reality, no matter how rebellious or how adventurous you feel. So we have to find balance a harmony with reality, synchronized with our capacity, physiological and psychological. And in that synchrony, we become one with the world. And it is at the point where you are peaceful with the world, with the rhythm of the world, that you find peace in your creative effort, that you know that this is yours and it's not judged. It's just a process that you go through. This is mine. I'm going to go through it, whatever
Mm-hmm.
it takes. But I also recognize that I need to rest in order to continue producing that feeling of creation and affinity towards the process, that it's my process. Because the minute I start driving as reckless guy and relying on the technology to carry me through, I lose control. And and the way I see it is you lose control not so much of the technology, but you lose control of the fact that that technology was just good enough at 30 miles per hour. The minute you go at 31 miles per hour, it's no longer good.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to know your limitations. And I mean, we talked about it in our first recording, but you got to know yourself,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah.
I find it fascinating that in your shift, you actually recognize that in the very process that, and that doesn't. I mean, my read is, and I'll give the floor to you, but my reading is that it doesn't absolve anybody who keeps the 9 to 5 cycle
Mm-hmm.
as being prudent, as being appropriate, as being right. It's just that once you come from a place of change, you recognize the value of the change and the value of sustaining it within its norm. But you can't let the norm becomes your function. In other words, there is always seeking, or there's always an attempt to push the boundaries, and that's how I get stronger.
Mm-hmm.
But push the boundaries within the limitations of physics.
Yeah. Yeah. You touched on such great stuff there. Uh, I mean, I think in talking about it in an analogy or a metaphor is what I'm talking about because the person that is in a 9 to 5, that midnight might come to them in a different way. They might be living in the darkness in another way within their heart, in their life, or in their home. And so, it is an analogy. But I loved what you touched on there, coming into the world with limits that are predefined and set and rebelling against them. I also try not to be real judgmental of where people are because I know that this is part of the natural course of life, that we all have to bump up against life somehow. And life is the teacher. It is the great teacher. It will teach us, if we make it long enough, it'll teach us things that in ways that we truly understand and we truly integrate into our life. And I think that's where I came to is that I had so rebelled so much against the world that I destroyed my own life to the point where I saw that I couldn't continue this road anymore and I had to look outward and had to look where was I wrong, and I became willing like I had never been willing before. But I will say I don't know that rebellious nature in the beginning was a natural thing because there was strict forms that I was trying to be put in. There's people saying, you must get up every morning and do this and take out the trash and do all this as if that is going to solve my life by just following these rules. I wanted to push against that, but then it turned into hubris. It turned into this idea that I know better than people. And then came my destruction. And from the ashes of my destruction, I saw much wider. I saw that I don't know all the answers, and neither do they, but I'm going to borrow the things that I'm going to try them in my life and start to see if they work. The things I rejected and threw away in the trash. So much of this society and of religion, of all kinds of things, I threw into the trash, and I began to like pull them out and look at what is right in them. Because I might discard the entire, the baby with the bathwater, discarded an entire, you know, idea of life just because I didn't like one little thing. And so that was a very narrow world that I was living in, because there might be many things that are valuable to me, and that this idea, philosophy, theology, whatever, that is very valuable. But because it came up against my hubris, I would just toss the whole thing out. And so I guess you could say in the end, I was humbled to the point that I could open my eyes and see that I needed to look outside of myself and start to bring in other things from the world that I had rejected and try them in my life to see if they would work. And it started to show fruits. And so when I would try things, I would see the fruits and go, this is good. I'm putting this in my basket. Other things I'd go, I'm going to discard this again, this little element of that. And it became like a little hunt in my life for a long period, maybe a few years, where I paused this idea that I'm going this direction and I'm doing this, and going, I'm just getting my life. I'm taking a moment of clarity to understand the things that I've discarded.
This is very profound, actually, in this sense. When you set yourself a goal, this is exactly the process you need to go through. You need to clarify to yourself, what is it that you are achieving? What is important to that end point? And once you have an end point in your perspective, it's very easy to say yes and no. People that have difficulty saying yes and no, they have no clue where they're going. When you know the destination, the map is written for you. You don't have to worry about it. All you have to do is say yes, no, yes, no. And I bet you'll be saying no more often the closer you get to the destination, because it will be like palpable, it will be sensible to you. You have already done the long journey. Now it's very close. And that's why you see people through history. I mean, in our modern times, you see someone like Steve Jobs, who was considered like cruel SOB or something like that. He was like very impatient with people. You tell him something and he'll be like, just shut up and do what I asked to do, or something to that manner, whatever. He wasn't polite. But that's because he had such a clear perspective on where they need to go. And these guys didn't have that perspective. They didn't see his vision. And so he had to be the bad guy to say, I know where we're going. That's all you need to do. And this is the kind of people I want working with me, the one that appreciate what I've seen and how good it is, and that's what we're going to do. And the company thrived, right? He may have gotten the social bad rap, but we got the benefit of his products, of his vision as consumers. And this is on a social level. But in terms of family, which is fundamentally much more important than building a product that is useful by millions or billions, if the parents don't know where they're going, how are they going to guide the kid to get anywhere? And if the parents' end is mistaken, it's misintegrated, how are they going to guide the kid to get to that better place that every generation is striving to take the next generation to?
Mm-hmm.
And so it becomes very instructive to understand that the minute you set the goal, you're going to have yes and no. And the closer you get to the goal, you're going to have mono. You're going to have much more affirmative yes. And that's what you really understand who you are. Because when you say yes to something, and you say it with the backing, with love, with passion, with your whole being, everything is invested in that yes, then nothing can shake you. But also, it tests everybody around you. And so, this is another way of why we constantly seek absolutism in our good and evil, right? They're absolutely good and there's absolutely bad things. But based on what? If you consider human life, then taking a human life is bad. I don't care what the reason is. I don't care what the consequences of taking that life brings about. The fact that all value can be judged against whether I'm breathing or not. Once you take my breath away and I cannot breathe anymore, once you take my life away, there's no value left, right? And as a living, breathing person, I must have been of value to someone, at least to my creator, to my parents, right? If no one else. And if that's not the case, somebody's got to have taken care of me because there's no one on earth can survive by himself or herself through childhood. We are metaphysically dependent on somebody else taking care of us, no matter how independent we feel epistemologically. We think that we know the world to the best of our understanding of the world. But as you pointed out, soon we find out that we may have been mistaken about something very important. And then you realize that just like you, everybody else could be mistaken for something very important. I think that's important understanding to come through. And unfortunately, we have to go through much pain often to get to clarify that, you know, there's proportionality, there are degrees. And yes, when it comes to human life, there are absolutes, but they're very, very limited absolutes. I mean, outside of life, everything else is pretty much proportionate and degreeable. And to what degree you're going to commit to your values, it's up to you.
Yeah. You know, I was thinking that, you touched on, like, if your parents don't know where they're going, what kind of confusion are they creating? And I was thinking of how we just, like a suit, when we're struggling, maybe in the young age, we have a decision to rebel or to just put on the suit that they're wearing, that the generation before us has worn. And as you start to question, you'll see that generation will say, well, I'm doing what that guy told me. And then we get into infinite regression where you've basically set aside your own reasoning and just carried on something that is unquestioned in your life. And so even the principles, even if they're good that you're carrying on, you have not come up against them. You haven't proven them true in your own soul and in your own life. And I think that is something that life, again, if we try to protect ourselves from the exact thing that will teach us that, to find our own absolutes in our life. And what I did, coming around to this change in my life, I did find absolutes, and they're a little bit. I had a goal before me. It's not as clearly as a goal as I will make. I will do this and that, but it was a goal of who I was going to be, and I had laid down so much of myself because I tried so many things to make my life work. I've laid down my own opinion. I've laid down all assertiveness in my life and just let somebody else run my life in the end. And so I began to pick these things up and decided that my goal is to become a certain person, which is of use to the world. That I'm not only I'm not throwing away my own tragedies. I'm going to bring them into my life. I'm going to learn from them. And I'm a man that was not a great use to my family. I was a burden on them my whole life and to the society around me because I got into legal problems and everything. And I want to turn these things and I want to become someone that is contributes to life, that gives life. And so it was a goal. It wasn't very, it was a subtle, I want to say it was kind of a blurry goal, but I knew exactly what it was in my heart. And it falls around truths that, that I embraced at that time of just honesty, of being honest with myself and with others. And that love, is something, it's more than just this feeling, but it's how that I treat other people, that I treat them as I would like to be treated. And humility, it's not being humiliated, but it's being in a place of ready to learn and listen, you know. And so these are things that I embraced, and I knew what it felt like to go there. I wasn't there when I started, and I still am not there, but I'm going to that place of knowing what a whole person feels like. I've just touched on it sometimes and felt what it is, and it draws me forward. But I'll touch on lastly, it does cause friction with other people. The Steve Jobs thing. When I know what I'm trying to do and be in my life, it doesn't mean that everybody's going to enjoy that. A lot of people fell away from me during this time because I was very sure of what I was doing. And if you're trying to take me somewhere else or get in the way, I'm not stopping for you. I'm sorry. I've already wasted half my life. I'm going to move forward. And so there was a lot of friction. There was, sometimes uh, feelings hurt that were not, I was, I tried not to be like a Steve Jobs who was socially very rude. It's more in the way that you're talking that I had a vision of the person I would be, and I would try to lovingly remove the obstacles from me. And that might be just being assertive and saying the truth to somebody, or, and that they might not like that. And a lot of people don't. And I'm sorry, like you said, I'm going somewhere. I'm going to have to do this. And we cherish that in people, though. After the fact, we see, oh, they actually accomplished something in themselves or in the world. We write books about that, about people like that, but it might have not been very comfortable to be around them all the time.
Yeah, I think that is the lesson that we can learn. Being around a person that has committed to his destination, and every step he takes is one step closer to his destination. It's the most magnificent thing you can see in a human. Why? Because consciously, we live in now. Consciously, I can think about the future, but I cannot live in the future, right? I live in the now. I'm conscious only of the now. I can imagine that I'm conscious of the future, but I'm not conscious there. I have a projection, an imagination of the future that am conscious presently of the imagination. And the same goes for the past. I cannot be in the past consciously. I have conscious recall of what I believe I experienced in the past, as accurate or inaccurate that may be. But it is the present that I'm the only place consciously available. Or put it this way, the the presence is the only time that is consciously available to me. The other two dimensions, the future and the past, are representations. They are not consciously present. They are constructions of what had already taken place and what will take place according to my present state. So when you see someone who is so convinced that they're going to get from New York to LA and nothing is going to stop them, and if need be, they'll just go on foot, like one step at a time. But they'll make the journey, and you can root for them, right? But you're not going to start rooting for them at the first couple of steps. You're only going to start rooting to them when from New York they get to Ohio and they say, I'm still going to LA. You know, it's hard, but I'm going to get there. They're in Colorado somewhere, and you're like, oh, yeah, man, you can make it. Come on, let's go. And he's like, yeah, 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 I'm not giving up. I'm getting there. And by Arizona, the whole country can be behind them, right? So, but to have that clarity at the first few steps, it's what makes it remarkable for mankind, right? To have that vision, to have that goal, to have that willpower and say, I can live in the image of that man the way you did, right? I mean,
Mm-hmm.
coming from the place that you came, it's utterly remarkable. It's commendable. It's incredible. Now, you're one out of 8 billion people, or whatever the population of Earth is. But most of us don't want to do that. We want to be in the comfort of the unknown. Let's keep it hush hush. 9 to 5 is good. The system works, right? I can be part of the system. The system will take care of me. I can be a function or whatever. Um, but when you want to change something, it takes a lot of willpower. It takes a lot of effort, as we were talking about last time. And and of course, I mean, that's what makes everybody that joins you from the beginning to end so special to you.
Mm-hmm.
And what makes them special is that they saw the vision, they saw the conviction, they saw the power in you, and they knew that you can do it from the very get go. And that's why, when you have a good founding, it's unbreakable. I mean, it's going to take a really shattering event to break a bond like this, where from the
Mm-hmm.
beginning they have the same vision, they were lockstep, and then all of a sudden something happens and they're no longer together. Very unusual, right?
Mm-hmm.
And and once you have that fundamental bond of conviction that we can both get there, or I can at least enjoy your journey and be supportive whenever I can, then it becomes very meaningful. It becomes a very strong bond that it's inspiring. And it's inspiring also for the guy that is doing the journey, because they're like, yeah, he or she sees it too. It's not only me, right? And now it's such a joy. I can spend the whole night with them talking, right, about my journey, what my next step is going to be. So it may antagonize many, but the few that attracts makes makes up more for the loss of the um, for the ones that are uh, disturbed by your conviction.
Mm-hmm.
I bet that
Yeah,
was your experience too.
yeah. You know, it's something I like to think about because when I was young, like a lot of young people, we watch movies and we think, oh, I want to go change the world, and young people are protesting to change the world. Where now, if you want to change the world, if you want a chance at that, it's not going to be out there. It's happening right here because individuals changed the world and they started by themselves being changed. Now, that sometimes falls by just fate. Like for me, I do other podcasts where I'll talk about these traumatic events, and I had a true traumatic event of on death's door, and they want to bring it down to a practical level. Well, how can people that they don't nobody wants to do that? No one wants to go through all that pain. How can they get what you got but not go through all the suffering? That's generally what they're saying. And I hope they don't, because I don't cherish the thought of anyone going through that. And it's a hard question for me because I remember there was a time where I was in this time where I I know that I almost died, and I have a memory of waking up with the doctors over me, screaming my name, trying to get me up. And the memory seared the vision of that seared so deeply in my soul, because what it was I was deeply in darkness and alone, and then I was going to die. And it seared something so deep in me that my life is forever changed from that. I've seen the vision of what eventually we all, I hope it's not in that despair that I was in. That's what made it a darkness, because I lived in darkness. And so, of course, my death was going to be in darkness, you know. And so this vision carried on and changed the entire course of my life, because I know what it's like and I don't want to leave that way. I want to leave in gratitude and having peace with the world, and not just regretting everything that I'd ever done. And so, how does that come into, and I'll say also, because you touched on a lot there, is that when a person goes and they go, I'm going to LA from New York, they not only change their life, they're changing, like you're saying, the lives around them. Is as a person really steps away from the crowd and says, the herd is all going this way, and they're like, no, I'm going over here. A lot of that herd is going to follow them and be excited by the adventure that they go on. And so you're bringing healing and life to others when you work on the healing and life in yourself. But it's not going to be easy. The last thing I'll say is that, it says stuff like this in scripture, like every work will be tested with fire, sprinkled with fire. I look at that as the work right here. When I go forward and I say I'm going to do this, and I take those first 3 steps, it's pretty easy. You get into the first week, I'm going to be tested with fire. What is your conviction? Are you going to continue on? And there's hope beyond, at least I found this experientially, as I go, yes, I'm going to go on. Even though I'm being tested, I find that the hope comes after that, and a feeling of energy that carries me on. But I'm going to face it again. When I'm in Colorado, it's like, are you going to keep going? I'm going to be tested again. And I'll say, yes, I'll keep going. I know I've done that so much in my own personal life that I know on the other side of that is the energy that I need to continue the entire journey. I know that it's just in the present, I have to make this decision to go another day. Because, like you said, tomorrow is conceptual. What I don't know what that really gives me, except that the dream changes, it informs who I am exactly right now. And so that's why that dream is so important. That vision is not because of what it is out there in the future, but what it does to me today. It changes me, because it tells me I'm going to get up, I'm going to have courage, and I'm going to walk past this test of fire and continue on. I have to change. I have to become something to do that. Something that I'm not. I mean, but anyways, I'll stop there.
Um, so lately I've been thinking about this understanding of proximity, and I haven't posted an episode yet on it, but it's shortly coming. I'm just trying for my voice to get a little better, and I'll publish it. But I'll give you uh, a synopsis of what I'm thinking about in relation to this particular experience. So, when you observe reality and you observe parent and child, the child is very close to the parent at a young age, right? No parent would let the child get away from them in a long distance. I mean, a mother wouldn't even entrust her own mother to take care of the baby with 100% reliance on the grandma, her own ma, um, at infancy. It's like, really, you're gonna take care of my baby? Okay, let me try and put my baby in your hands. I know you took care of me, but this is my baby. It's like, so that proximity reflects the fragility of that being, right? Life is very fragile. We're vulnerable. And the less developed we are, the closer we are to the source of life, to our presence, right? So I'm connecting that phenomenon that is observed among animals, mammals, uh, among humans. And then you see them, they become teenagers at 12, 13. They want to go for like a few days on a trip or even earlier age. And you're like, well, maybe not. Well, I'm not sure, but okay. I mean, if you go with so and so and they're going to be next to you and closer to you and they'll observe you, okay, I'll let you go for a night or two with your friends and that person in particular being close to you. So that dependence, the physical, metaphysical dependence on life that corresponds to your ability to function independently, um, it's very prominent, very powerful. And so when you say that I'm going to do something in the future, you are generating a distance from your presence. You are no longer in your safety net of the present. You're projecting out very far. So, to someone that doesn't see the steps required to go through, someone who doesn't see the will required to uphold that progress, that is too abstract. It's too foreign to them. So they are like, they cannot take you seriously. But what is interesting about this is that also we do that in the manner in which we learn things, right? We first have direct perception, and then that direct perception becomes into a pattern, and that pattern becomes into a conceptual construct, or we try to connect abstractions to concretes. And in one of my episodes, I quote Ayn Rand, where she talks about the concept of furniture. There is no such thing as furniture out there, right? There is no entity that is furniture. But you have tables, you have chairs, you have all kinds of furniture. So furniture is a level of abstraction that no one can see. So when you tell me you're going to make furniture, I don't believe you. But if you tell me you're going to make a table, I'll believe you. I understand table. I don't understand furniture. So when you tell me you're going to go to LA, I have no idea what you're talking about. Who? You going to go to LA? I don't think so. What is LA? Where is LA? How are you going to get there? And so I don't have that access to the knowledge. I'm too far from it. But you keep the proximity. You're the creator of your own destiny, right? You make it happen because you have a picture, you have a goal, you go through it. You're very close to your creation. You're the mother holding your child. Nobody sees the child yet, but you know you're going to have the child, and you protect that. And so I think that's a good way of seeing how people can get antagonized and people can get on board to support you if I can explain to you exactly what I saw and lay out to you the manner in which I can accomplish my vision, then you'll be on board. But if I only tell you that I'm going to be doing something very abstract to your understanding, you're going to dismiss me. You're not going to believe me unless I have a record of doing that in the past, like telling you, I'm going to create such and such thing. And you're like, oh, okay, I'm on board with that. Let's do it. I remember the last time you did something like that. But that's part of the proximity or distance from the process. Do I know that you can do it or you can't? The problem is that every one of us has that potential. We just haven't actualized it.
Mm-hmm.
And when someone is in the dark and he knows or she knows that they can rise to the light, people don't believe them. People see them as belonging to the darkness. And there's no way, like you were saying, that this gentleman was walking in with you in the prison saying there's no hope for these guys, right?
Mm-hmm.
Last time we were talking. And that's how they see it. There is no potential for them. But to me, that indicates that that gentleman himself hasn't put a real pressure on himself to achieve something of his own and more of a following the form of the system.
Mm-hmm.
Because once you do something on your own, you recognize that anybody can do it. It's just a matter of effort, of vision, of perseverance, of willfulness to get involved, to value. So I find this stuff fascinating.
You know, um, that made me think about, when you have done things like the transformation in my life is something that I could not believe was ever possible of me, or I would have done it earlier. But now, when I meet people that are down in that dark valley, I believe absolutely they could do it, because I know that it can be done. And so there's this idea of moving forward, again, pulling people out because they can see, oh, especially if they knew me from that time, truly knew me, they would go, most people thought I would be dead by 40 that were in my inner circle. They didn't think I would live. So to see this is to be a proof in itself that it can be done, and not just what I did, but any obstacle that is in our way. Um, I have in my book, I have a poem called Be Not Ever Known. This made me think of, because you also, like you said, the baby, I know the baby. Only I know my connection with that baby. Nobody else can uh, conceive of how much I will protect this baby. So I am alone, and this poem talks about that I walk out into this world alone, even though I have the comfort of knowing I have that baby and I know why I'm doing what I'm doing. So much in my life, though, I'm going to be walking alone because people won't understand what I'm doing. And, I think of, I forget his name, Robert. There's a guy you had on your YouTube show recently,
Robert Bagley?
Bagley, yes. So there's another side you touched on there, which is persuasion, because this is great leaders too, is they can paint a vision for people that have never gone to the moon, that have never thought we could do something. Is that, can you communicate? This is where the artist can come in, and the speaker that can convince people that it can be done, you know, and and sometimes you can do that. I've found in my life that sometimes that's possible, and then again, sometimes be not ever known. Walk out as if no one knows you, and you're just going to keep going, and you're going to be alone in this. And there's like two sides of that, because I always want people to journey with me. I don't like being alone in this, but at the same time, I have to accept when people drop off, because I know it's kind of unbelievable. It's hard to see without the proof or the evidence in front of you.
Yeah, and I used to work in a very fast-paced environment with a lot of stress, and people that were very good at their job were often the ones that couldn't explain how they did their job. They just did it. It just came to them, and they were good. They were like virtuosos of
Mm.
what they were doing. But if you ask them, okay, now I got this great potential for you to train, they had no capacity to do so. They could not transfer what they were doing onto the other person, no matter how good they were, that other person to absorb whatever. So we would have novices sit next to the masters and just observe, see what they do, and try to pick it up themselves. Because it's so fast, everything happens so fast that, it, I mean, by the time I'm trying to explain to you, it's already gone. So I got to
Mm.
do it. So you have to watch me do it in order for you to gain some kind of inkling of grasp of what just took place. So I think we touched on this last time, but so this issue of time comes up all the time, right? Because when I know that I'm going to go from New York to LA, and when I know that I'm going to be walking, I cannot put myself in a position to expect that I'll get there in a week, right? It's impossible. I mean, I don't care if you're John Bolt or whoever the fastest walker on earth or runner, you can't do it. It's impossible. So you have to have the right time frame of expectation. And this is going back again to that structure of concrete to abstraction. You have to understand that there are layers and layers and layers and layers, and it's never ending. Once you start building and it grows and it grows and it's you have no idea when how big it's going to be by the time you get there. And then once you get there, you realize that, oh, but there is a whole Pacific Ocean in front of me. So where does that lead to? Let me go figure it out.
Mm.
Right? So now you're on a completely different journey.
Mm.
LA is way behind you. It's like a dot on the map. And I think this is indicative of what happens with us when we lose sight of how much do I need to put in today, right? When I was in college, I spent a couple of nights in a row thinking that I'm Superman and I can handle it, but then I suffered for another 24, 48 hours of recovery. So yeah, I turned in the assignment on time, but that cost me dearly. And so I was one of those overachievers. I would take like 27 credits in one semester, and people would do that in a whole year. So I was constantly pushing and pushing and pushing. And then I realized there's no need. Why push so hard? I can get very far in a systematic, consistent, slow way. And so this perception of time, when we are young, time is meaningless to us. Like time is, who cares about time? We only care about what's going on right now in my experience. I want to experience more intensity. But then as you go older, and in that growth, you develop skill and density of integration, then every moment becomes intense and valuable, and you really cherish it. You can really experience the depth of that experience in the moment,
Mm.
rather than make it an afterthought of, oh, we had a huge party, great party. It was a lot of drinks and dance and music and stuff like that. Like you can sense the music at the time that the chord is played. And that kind of experience slows things down. And then you appreciate your journey even more, that I'm not in a hurry to get to LA. I'm just going to enjoy that step that I'm taking right now, slowly, but steadily and surely. And I know that there's going to be another step, but let me finish this one first.
Yeah. Boy, that just brought up so many good thoughts in my mind about creativity, really, because this is something I've had to learn. In the same way, I was very ambitious when I was young, and I would just burn the candle at both ends. And one thing I can look at is from age my 20 to age 40, I only put out 4 albums. I was trying all the time, staying up late working to do these albums. But from age 40 to I'm now 50, I think I've made over 10 albums.
Wow.
And albums that I'm very proud of, that I think really express my true work. Where what price was I paying? Because I would stay up for days and just grind myself, and then have to recover and be depressed and because I have lack of sleep. And how much time did I lose by not, like you're saying, finding a way to live in the reality of life in the mornings, in the nights, to wake up and create something daily that moves me towards it while enriching my life and going deeper into the thing that I'm doing. There's that mystics say, eat when you eat, drink when you drink, talk when you talk. That's how I want to live now, because I do realize that life is precious. I accept the confines of my life, that not everything will be done. So when I accept that not everything will be done, I make the work, doing the work itself today. That in that is the ritual. In that is the riches. Because I might, who knows what happens tomorrow. We talked a little bit about uncertainty, but I might not be here next week. So what good was it that I was working, and feeling bringing no riches, not only to myself, but to my family, because also burnout causes me not to be present for the people that I care about in my life. And it is something that maybe, most people don't get to this till later, until they can see the winter of life coming on, and they're like, wow, I can't run around as if time doesn't exist. I've got to make use of time. And when you do that, though, you you find that there's, well, I'll say for myself, I find that there was never enough time too when I was younger. I never had enough time, and there's enough time now to do my day and to take care of the things that I need to take care of, But I do have to let go of the idea that I just go on forever and that I'm going to finish all that I start. I have to let those expectations live in that future that is uncertain, like we talked about last time, and be okay with that, so that I can fully be here right now, and do something in my life that is meaningful to me in the first, but maybe to someone else.
Recently I came across a video of Chick Corea and I believe it was either Audi Miola or John McLaughlin, but two of these three shared an experience of how they um, played with Miles Davis. And Miles Davis had only one instruction to them: just follow the music, just play.
Hmm.
Now, if Miles Davis said that to me, he'll be in trouble. There'll be him and whoever else is a musician there in the band, and they're playing, and I'll just be listening and enjoying their gig, but I can't follow it, right? So there is a point at achieving mastery where you no longer need the notes, you no longer need instruction, you no longer need manual or um, framework. All you need is get immersed in the experience,
Hmm.
and the mastery comes out concretely, very forcefully. And Chick Corea, I think, expressed that in his interview, that, he goes, I went into this very nervous. And the minute they started, all his nervousness went away. It was like he synced with the rhythms, with the things that Miles Davis was doing, with everybody else was doing, and he was just there on every
Hmm.
note. He like started anticipating, feeling it. It's just being part of the experience. It's like a meditation.
Hmm.
You let yourself go. You have to trust yourself that you have developed the necessary skills to be able to function properly on Earth, right? That
Hmm.
anxiety, that um, self doubt, it's unnecessary. Your mom had a good reason to keep you close to her because she knows you're incapable of taking care of yourself. The minute she let you go, She knows, moms know, this kid can take care of himself. And that's when most kids start doubting themselves. They seek the comfort of their parents, the comfort of their known environment. And it's a camouflage, right? Instead of taking the trust and just going with the flow, you start creating all kinds of constraints for yourself, right?
Mm-hmm.
And those constraints inevitably hurt you. And then you come back, for the very few people fortunate like you that were able to recognize the constraint and that play, you came out of it, you drove through it with great effort and power. And now you're back into the place where you can slowly immerse yourself and produce more,
Mm-hmm. And
right?
enjoy it.
And
Yes.
enjoy it with
Yeah.
a smile, with fun, like
Mm-hmm.
be there. Um, so when I saw that interview, I'm like, wow, how, I mean, I love Miles Davis music and, um, the kind of blue I'm constantly re-listening to that album. And, um, for him to have that confidence in a musician, it just shows how generous and how wise he is with the process. He
Mm-hmm.
knows that you can't screw up. Maybe you think you're going to screw up, but I know you can't screw up, right? He's the mother. He's saying, you just go.
Mm-hmm.
You can't make this up, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. You know, that's there's this the idea is that, so going back to when you leave the mother and the mother lets you go, there has to be a time of electing yourself to be responsible now. I've wondered, I haven't looked deeply into this, but just about initiations when from the future, I mean from the past, where there was like an actual ritual to say you're an adult now, you know, here's your part of land that you will work or whatever, here's your mule. But an actual time in life where you are an adult now, and if that doesn't happen, if there isn't a place, which it wasn't for me, that you have to initiate yourself. And that might come through a lot of confusion and pain to go, wait a minute, nobody's driving this wagon. I better grab the reins. And so I have to accept the responsibility for my life. And then I can, I like to think of it like a tent, my creativity, because what you're talking about with just letting yourself be in the music, it's also the creative life is I like to be childlike. I like to let myself be untethered. In fact, I don't know that I can find the true muse, the real good stuff of the art unless I allow myself to be completely untethered without goals or structures. But I've learned this through life. I can't do that unless I set the boundaries, which are the skills. But I think of it like a tent as the different pegs I have to set. And one of them is a peg at night that I have to go to sleep at night so that I can wake up and not waste my day. And there's different structures as someone that has this had to initiate himself and become responsible that I must set in place if I want that little childlike part of me to have an area to play in. Otherwise, it's just chaos. It's not Miles Davis. it's kids just playing wild music that nobody wants to listen to. And so that is something through just maturing in adulthood that nobody else is going to do this. I've got to step in and I have to be the adult in my life so that the child in me can create. I have to take care of him. I have to keep him fed and, just all the things that go with creating a structure to thrive within.
Absolutely. And, we rejuvenate ourselves by maintaining the curiosity of the child in us, but now at a much higher level of understanding, much higher level of performance, right?
Mm.
A child cannot profess mastery. It needs time, right? I mean, they're child prodigies, but they're not masters. They're just performers. A master is not just a good performer. A master is the process itself, internalized, lived through, and they can explicate it, they can withhold, they can project, they can do whatever they want with it. A prodigy at a young age cannot do all these things. They have no emotional control. And so it's very insightful for you to think in those terms, to point to the initiation, is that when do I cross the threshold from adolescence to adulthood? When do I cross the threshold from childhood to adolescence? And I have limited understanding from epistemological point of view, but again, time plays a huge role here because some people mature at age 6 and other people mature at age 60. So it can vary from person to person, from experience to experience. And what kind of maturity are we talking about? But when it comes to skill, to mastery of certain set of things done, you need time. You can't just go from New York to LA in a week on foot. You have to allow the time to take all the subsequent steps possible and required for you to accomplish the journey.
Mm.
And, you know, once you get to LA, you don't proclaim yourself, I arrived. You may have a soft smile on your face, right, by getting to read the sign LA, but it's the other people that are going to be ecstatic about you. It's not that you're going to be ecstatic for yourself. Like, I think we touched on this last time when you were talking about that you didn't like album of Bob Dylan and everybody else liked it and he redid it, and you know it's like a different experience for each one of us.
Mm-hmm.
But we are cheering the doer, and so if you haven't initiated yourself, if you haven't taken on the responsibility to go through the journey and to understand the significance of that journey, then you'll be lost among all kinds of excuses, rationalizations, shame, guilt, or whatever it is. Um, but once you do it, then it's very clear. There's no regression from that. I mean, people do give up sometimes. They find it harder than um, they imagined,
Mm-hmm.
but that's only because they have the end goal in mind and thinking that it's going to reveal itself by just imagining it. But once you get immersed in the work, that's when the nervousness goes away, right? You're
Mm-hmm.
only worried about the next step. You're not worried about LA anymore. You're worried, can I make that next step?
Mm.
Can I take my next step? And if somebody in Colorado says, where you going? Say, I think I would, LA, I'm going LA. But let me worry about the next step. I think it's going to get me to LA.
Yeah. Yeah. It's funny that the the more that you're really going there, the less you talk about it,
Right.
you know, because if, like you said, they ask you and you're like, oh yeah, LA, because now you're just living it, you know? And, yeah, I was thinking that, you know, this might step it back a little bit, our conversation, because the goal itself, if it is worthy, it almost pulls you to it, you know. And so there's a place of when you initiate and you're looking for where am I going, that there's a time, it takes time there too, because you may go, you know, think of LA and it sounds great, but now you've got questions, maybe I should go to Oregon, or you know. But when you have this worthy goal, it enlivens you to take enough of the journey to know that I can do this. And, I also would touch on just how, even when people do fail and they give up, even people that have gone a long way, what is the natural reaction to that? I think of all the movies we watch. In almost every movie, there's a point where they're about to give up, and we go, no, no. It's the desire, and it's all that we continue on. So it's innate in us somehow not to give up. You know, and I think that when you kind of when I look at movies in that way, I watch. If you can't see, I've got tons of movies. I watch a lot of old movies. I love film. And what does enable that person to go on in the movie? It's the script that we know also, because we also know in the end that they're going to rescue someone. They're going to get their love. They're going to get the prize, you know, and that's what enables them to pick themselves up, because it's so worthy what they're going after. Otherwise, it's not a good movie. If you don't feel like it's so worthy that they could almost die to get there, then it's not a worthy goal. And so it's like stepping back. All of this is time, and I can't just go look on YouTube and find a worthy goal for myself. I have to have a relationship with myself and interact with myself and wrestle and go, this is worthy. And then I will feel it, and it will pull me, and I will go.
Right. Um, and it also has to be complex enough to be challenging enough for you to keep digging in.
Mm-hmm.
But this is one of the central issues in life. It's identifying value. What makes one thing valuable and another thing not valuable? What makes one thing worthy of pursuing it and another thing not worthy of pursuing it? And, throughout history, we have this um, philosophical split that some people want to minimize the worth of things by making it relativistic. So whatever is worth to you may not be worth to somebody else. So it balances off. So who knows what's worth.
Mm-hmm.
But as I said in the beginning of our discussion, when it comes to human life, there are certain things that are absolutely valuable. Like my life is valuable. If you think that my death is going to bring value to millions after me, you are mistaken. You just took my value, my life. And now you're going to credit my worth, ascribe it to a value to millions of others, and that makes me feel better. Well, I'm no longer there to feel better. I'm dead. There's no way for me to evaluate that. In order for me to ascribe value, I have to be alive. So I need to be alive in order to value something. And now, everything I do in life, if it takes even an iota or a second of my life away from my life, it's not good for me. I mean, yeah, maybe I can tolerate, maybe I'm a big enough guy to tolerate a second or an iota of a atom or molecule that it's, going away from me, disintegrating slowly. I don't feel it and it's okay. It's not okay. I don't want to lose it. It's my value. It's my life. I want to protect it. I want to make it better. I want to enhance it. Why? Well, what's the point if I don't? If I'm not here, I'm not going to love the people I love. I'm not going to love the things that I love, the things that I do. So, what's the point? Right? But if I value my life and I value the things that are important for my life, then everything gets structured, focused, everything gets clear. I can slow time. I don't have to hurry for anyone or anything or anywhere. I know where I'm going. I know that it's going to take whatever amount of time. I'm not even concerned about time. All I'm concerned is, can I make that next step in the
Mm,
progression that I've chosen to go through? And can I fully experience it? Can I have fun in my conversation with Ezra today? Yeah, I
mm,
can. So I'm not going to worry about how many people are watching it. When am I going to publish it? What kind of response I'm going to get? I don't care. I just had fun with you. We decided to post it. Somebody else may have fun just listening to it or watching to it. If they share our values, if they share the value that we're struggling with something, we're trying to find a solution to that something, and finding the solution, staying true to that struggle, it's empowering. You felt it on yourself, I felt it on myself, and that power generates more value to people around us. It's inspiring, it's motivating. And so if somebody has doubts about themselves after their mom let go of them, they can find inspiration in more stories like yours. That
mhm,
it's doable, it's possible. You can do it. It doesn't matter how bad you thought you had it, everything is reversible. It doesn't matter how good you think you have it, you can always go down the drain.
mhm.
You know, it's like
Absolutely.
when the price is high, it has no place to go but down. When the price is down, it has no place to go but up.
Mm,
So it's a cycle. And where you're going to be in that cycle, it's up to you. Um, I went a little off tangent there, but my point um, that I wanted to bring is that we um, we cannot relativize the value of life. We have to be deeply invested in what is valuable. Just because I feel pleasure from drinking alcohol or smoking cigars, which I do, I don't drink alcohol, but I smoke cigars. I understand it's bad for me. Um, but that doesn't make it valuable. Yeah,
mm,
I'm having fun with it. I understand I'm shortening my life. It's important to realize this. Um, but it's my life. It's my decision. How how am I going to live it? It's up to me as long as I'm not harming anybody around, right? And if somebody tries to tell me what to do, how to do it, they're breaching that covenant of value. Like whatever is valuable to you, good on you. But if you don't persuade me, if you don't convince me that it's valuable to me too, you cannot dictate it to me, right?
mhm,
You have to explain it to me. You have to make me see the way you see it and sell me the vision if I don't have one on my own already that I'm selling back to you, right? So we're in a constant competition, like, let me sell you this, let me sell you that. But it's not about the sell, it's about the exchange of values. It's a value for value exchange. Your story is valuable to me. And if I can make my story valuable to you, we have a valuable exchange. And then we can call it fun, right? If it's not, then why are we doing it?
mhm,
Right?
mhm.
Why do we have marketplace? Why do we have all this commerce, all these societies and everything else? That's why we have it.
Yeah.
So we can come together and have fun together.
Yes. You know, well, that touches on exactly the value, the first value that I found that changed my life on that day is I said, I want to live. My life is valuable. And, you know, you touched on some things of just society and how it relativizes. I remember looking back and seeing, like, you know, the 8 million people in the world. What does my life matter? And seeing myself in the cosmos with stars billions of miles away. I'm just a piece of dust. What does my life matter? And above that, or beyond that, I grew up in a religious uh, idea that your life, you know, I wouldn't say that they explicitly say this, but the the actual understanding I had growing up is that this life is not very valuable. The life after is. So if you die or just lay down your life and forever, it became lay down your life for everybody else and lay down your ideas and adopt all of ours. And because it's not that valuable, this life is an evil place that's not valuable. And so why even worry about it? And the decision I made is that my life is valuable. And it's valuable to my creator as well because I was created in a certain way. That I'm here after all this history. I, I am here, I just thought of a saying, but I'm not going to be able to remember where it came from or even say it right. But it's like living with two pockets. You must live with two pockets. One of them is that all of creation, all time, all millions of decisions have brought me here into this life right now. That's one pocket. So there is a specialness to this. I mean, just think of the millions of decisions my dad had to make to go into the ice cream shop, to talk to my mother, go take it all the way back through time. It's all been to bring me here. And the other pocket is dust and ashes. I am mortal. And I live in that balance that I am special. My life has value. And the meaning of my life matters to me. And I feel that societal thing of just flatlining all that. I talk about all the movies I watch. A lot of these commentaries, they'll talk about nostalgia as this horrible thing. Oh, this movie's very nostalgic here, but give it some time. Well, I love nostalgia because nostalgia is the kind of warm feelings I have for my own meaning in my life, of my grandma and her chair, And so I have adopted that into my life, and it's one of the biggest changes in my life is that I do think my life is meaningful. And I think what is comes into my life is meaningful, and that what it does though is it's not just me. When I start seeing my life as valuable and meaningful, that means your life is valuable and meaningful too. That's the consequence of truly believing that. So, I'm not the only person in the universe or in this room. My life is meaningful, and if that is true, then your life is meaningful as well.
And that is precisely why we treat murder as the capital punishment. Because once you abdicate the right to life, when you see no value in another human, you see no value in your life,
Hmm.
right? It's the opposite of it. When you see value in yourself, you see the value in the other. But you
It's very
cannot
true.
see the value in the other and think that you have value. You have to come out of you. It has to be from you. Because who's doing the valuing, right? I
Hmm.
have to do the valuing. I
Mm-hmm.
have to be the one recognizing the value. And that's why I find inspiration so meaningful, is because I see inspiration as the promise that there's excellence out there that I perceive, and that excellence is possible to me, who I perceive myself as not have reached the level of excellence. But I'm inspired by what I what I saw. And now I can work. Now I can get on the journey to achieve that level of excellence that I just perceived. And that reinforces the value. That confirms the value. That makes me now valuable as the inspiration I saw. So it has to come from me, my recognition. And, historically, Aristotle was the one that first emphasized the issue of recognition, that you recognize the other as your mirror. And that's how you enter the space of love. That And then the opposite. If I mean, the only reason why uh, a human is capable of killing is because they see it outside of the realm of life, right? They see that they no longer matter, so nobody else matters. I
Mm.
can. kill anybody and everybody because I don't matter. But the minute you matter, you cherish life. You cannot even conceive of harming life. And that's what's so special about this, that finding value, affirming value becomes absolute. But what is not absolute is how you're going to generate that value. Will you generate value? Will you become the value of your potential that you may become? And many of us don't, which is fine. As long as you're on the path of actualizing it. Yes, they struggle, there's turmoil, there's challenge, but at least you know that you are trying. But if you give up, that's what trouble comes in. So you
Mm-hmm.
cannot ever give up on value. Value is self enforcing in a way. Once you discover it, it will compel you to keep it or gain even more um, through its recognition. So I think that's an important point.
Yeah. There's, I would say one thing that popped into my mind when you were talking about the other, seeing value in the other. I thought of love with my wife because we have two marriages. We have 10 years when we were being devastated by addiction and at each other's throats. And we have 10 years where we decided to reunite and do our life. And I feel like I see her now. When I look back at those earlier 10 years, what I saw was a perception or a projection of my desires for this. She played as a puppet in my life. I wanted her to act a certain way to please something in me about what I thought I needed from this other person in my life instead of actually seeing her as a truly other. And it's only through both of us, because she's on the same path, finding that value that our life matters. So we're going to take care of ourselves. We're going to uh, be good to ourselves, that we started to see the other, that I can now feel like I can see her more clearly as the other. And I love her for just who she is. I can appreciate her. She's a very eccentric woman, and I love every bit of it. And it's because she is true otherness. And I love how you put that, because I could never see that until I saw that in myself, of my value. And it's funny because it really is. It seems opposite. We kind of talked about this last time with selfishness, where it seems opposite of the framework we come into this world with, where they're always pointing. You got the bell curve, and they're always pointing at the exceptions on the side to keep you away from thinking, but this is the normal, regular way of a human life. But don't think about that. Just let's point at all the exceptions. And
Yeah.
so you never can get your bearings on which direction to go.
Yeah, I mean, a professor of mine, I remember in a lecture, he was saying, if you're in the mountains, uh, covered in snow, and all you see is whiteness, after a while, you can't distinguish anything. All you see is whiteness. There's nothing. Even if a lion comes in front of you, you won't be able to see that lion because everything is white.
Hmm.
So you need that differentiation, you need that diversity. You need to be able to recognize every speck of snowflake there, right? Not see it as the whole whiteness, but recognize the crystallization of every snowflake, and realize that there's diversity. It's not all same. And yeah, there's there's clusters, there's groupings and everything. And some people like to be speaking one language, another group speaks another language, and they have one ritual, and another person has different ritual, but they're all trying to do the same thing. They're all trying to reproduce. They're all trying to find value in their life. They're all trying to enhance the next generation for a better life. Um, so this is just noise. This is the
Hmm.
whiteness, the white noise that doesn't allow us to see the crystallization and the difference in every snowflake. And I think in recognizing that the journey is a step at a time gives you a window into everything. Is that every one of us, as you pointed out, it's like it was years in the making. And that's what makes you special, right?
Hmm.
That contact that your parents had, that their parents had, that their parents had before them. It's like goes on and on and on and on, and then who knows how many generations forward it will go, right? And that is the key to the value creation, right? That's the valuable moment, the connection, the integration of value with another value. And um, we are, as you pointed out, we love the contrast, the extremes. We don't want to. We love to see it. We don't want to really experience it. Roller coasters or flying F-16s. It looks very cool, but not everybody can do it,
Hmm.
right? Um, especially if you have heart condition, it will be hard to do those things. So we like extremes. We like to think about them. We like to even have a glimpse of experience just to know that they exist, not just. And when we're young, that's what we do, right? We push the boundaries of experience. Like, I want to experience this and that and the other. And then you realize that some things you can handle, some things you can't. And um, I mean, the way, at least in the West, we are structured, we have military that pretty much gives you parameters of limitation, right? In the free world, you have to choose to go through a military experience,
Hmm.
but in the world that I came from, it was mandatory. Excuse me. So at age 18, I thought I'm invincible, and then the military taught me otherwise, that you're very much fragile and vulnerable. So don't think that you're God. We'll change that very quickly for you. And then you find your limits, right?
Hmm.
You say, this is how much I can do, and this is how much I can envision doing. Um, but in any event, recognizing value gives you the context, gives you those limitations, gives you that opportunity to experience the richness of the experience every single moment. And
Hmm.
there are many, many moments. I mean, Rudyard Kipling writes in If, right? The poem says, if you can run the 60 seconds of a minute or something, I don't remember exactly how he wrote it, but he's writing to his son, right? You have to experience the seconds in the minute. You have to experience the microseconds in a second, the nanoseconds in a microsecond. You have to have that deep connection to the process of life. And then everything is good.
Hmm.
Everything becomes orderly.
Yeah.
Everything becomes lovingly.
I would pull back like what pull back the curtain on the part you were talking about where you may look and say you test the extremes and go, I can't do that. I have a bad heart, I can't do that. But as you come into the present with yourself in this day and you accept the boundaries of your own life over time, you create something that is truly you can create something truly unique even of your limitations. I was thinking of a I'm sorry to go to so many movies, but I'm thinking of a movie I saw called Maud, I believe it was called, about it's a true story about a girl that was crippled and she lived in a little shack with her husband, And she sat at the window all day and she began painting what she sees out the window. And she developed a style that is now truly unique in the world by her limitations. But she wouldn't stop living. Her life was to look out and just to bring this beauty into her paintings, and to embrace all of her fragility and create something out of it. And I even see my own work as that, because I didn't become a pop star when I was young, you know? And so my music, it necessarily is about a life that's faced disappointments. But now it's a life that sings about middle-aged things. How many people write about middle-aged love? It's mostly pop songs that are about teenage love and infatuation. But I would not be writing this if I would have made it big and been able to go to the extreme of being a big rock star. I might have lost the beauty of my very unique life, and the things that I have taken and made out of it are the things that we love in this world. When somebody truly individually took what that was theirs with their limitations and created something, then it is that true inspiring thing to us all that is, oh wow, something new, something that I've never seen before, I've heard. And so, it's just further, just to touch on one last thing of what you're saying is, this can't happen until you're at, I don't believe, until you're at peace with who you are in this day, and letting go of things that may happen in the future, because it needs all of you to do that work that is yours today, and you can't, if half of your brain is worried about the future and half is trying to fix the past that's already gone, it doesn't have you.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Um, we've been talking for hour and a half,
Oh
and I
wow.
think this beautiful place to draw a line, because I know you and I, we can go on for hours and hours, and I would love it if I can steal another hour of your life and put it in a conversation with you, and we
I
can
would
share it
love
with
that.
the rest of the world. Yeah.
I would love that.
uh, yeah, thank you. And so, but I think that kind of sums up the struggle that we're trying to describe, this last concluding thoughts of yours about that freedom of understanding the limitations, and knowing yourself in that context is very valuable. And so I started with showing your book. I'm going to finish with showing your book. We didn't go poem by poem, but there's so much in here that it's you. The whole thing is you. And it's beautiful, and it's informative, it's instructive. So I would recommend to people to find the book. I believe you have it on Amazon, don't you?
Not yet. Right now, it's still only in print on my website, but it will be on Amazon and Audible this fall.
Okay, well, I'll put a link to your website. But Ezra Vancil, anybody can find it. Look for midnight and mornings and midnights, the album and the book, and you have some really fun artwork that goes with it. So people should look into it. So Ezra, it was privilege to talk to you. Thank you for joining me. It was a lot of fun as usual. I love my conversations with you. This is our second. I'm looking forward to many more to come.
I hope so, Arshak. I truly enjoyed our time together, and I enjoy listening to you. So I would love an invite to do it again.
Yes, indeed. Absolutely. All right. Thank you very much.
All right.
May you integrate your life with value driven days.